Hey everyone! Before we jump into today's episode, I wanted to share with you our amazing Soulfire retreat, Evolve, in Bali, Indonesia, that happens this April between the 22nd and the 28th. If your soul has been begging you for a life-changing experience, and you're ready to immerse yourself in a culture that is so deeply sacred and spiritual while being surrounded by incredible beauty, where your five senses are literally taken over and you have no other option but to be present and to savor every precious moment, then this retreat is for you. This retreat is for you if you are ready to push the edges of possibility and expand into new ways of being. This isn't just a luxury getaway with your favorite girlfriends. What's waiting for you in Bali is a life shift where the path forward becomes the turning point in the road toward the life you have been imagining, where anything is possible. Come evolve with us. Your soul is begging you. Head on over to soulfireretreats.org and book your spot today. We still have rooms available through most of the different room types, including our cheapest option at the twin bed level, but there's only one left for that price. So please join us today. And if you're interested in checking out the agenda that we have planned for this incredible week, then head over to my Instagram account at Corissa Step and take a look at the pinned post where I've shared it there. All of these activities are included, including a massage, a one-on-one personal healing session with a local Balinese healer, and so much more. I look forward to connecting with you soon. Now let's get to today's episode. Welcome to the Stepping into Meaningful Relationships podcast. I'm your host, Corissa Step. I'm a relationship and human design coach, and this podcast is designed to help you create a stronger connection to yourself so you can transform the relationships around you, whether that be with your partner, a friend, a parent, a child, or your business. We will be looking at relationships through the lens of human design, and my guests and I will bring you the tools, tips, and tricks to create deeply meaningful connections with others. But first, let's start with you. The most important relationship you have is the one with yourself. Thank you for tuning in. Now let's get to today's episode. Hey everyone. Welcome back to Stepping into Meaningful Relationships. I'm your host, Corissa Step. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about some of the energetic themes that are coming through for January 2024. So these are my intuitive insights. I pull tarot cards to kind of feel into what to expect in January. What are some of the themes that we're going to be exploring throughout the month? And of course, this is a collective reading for all of you, and it is in relationship to your relationships. So right off the bat, kind of what came through is that we've been spending a lot of time maybe focusing on our relationships and understanding the roles that we and our partners play. We've been in this phase where we've been trying to balance the power in the relationship. And maybe in the past, there has been a little bit of an imbalance of power. And it feels like to me that we're being called to notice and become aware of all the ways in which we have been trying to create more flow in our relationships. We've been trying to open up the doors to communication. We've been trying to level the playing field in some kind of way. And so we're really being called in January to begin to start to let go of that maybe scarcity mindset, or where we're trying to control the outcome, or we're trying to control the trajectory of the relationship that we are in. And we're being asked to really just kind of have some gratitude for how far we have come so far in our awareness of what's going on in the relationship. And then also where we're being called to maybe step beyond just doing what's best for the family in general, where we're really being asked to cultivate a stronger relationship with our partner that doesn't just involve having conversations around the kids or around what's needed for the home and all those kinds of things. We're being asked to get more vulnerable. We're being asked to really kind of open our hearts and share from a deep sense of vulnerability. But we're also being asked to sit in our discernment around who we are giving our time, our energy, and our love to. Be careful of the wolf dressed in sheep's clothing. Be mindful of who are the people that are not actually safe for you to be connecting with in a vulnerable way. You're being asked to be mindful of the types of relationships that you are surrounding yourself with, because not all of them are healthy. So this idea of being in your discernment around who you'll give your time and your energy and your love to is really, really important for the month of January. And of course, we're heading into a new year. So perhaps, January is usually a good time if you had not already done this in December, of reevaluating maybe some of your relationships, which was one of the themes that we had back then you're really being asked to do that this month. Okay. So look at your relationships, try to understand who the safe people are, who the unsafe people are, who are the people that you want to bring into, again, your inner circle, and who you want to place maybe somewhere on the outside or to the middle circle. And that's going to be really important. The other theme that came up, and this is something that we talked about in December, but the other theme that came up is, just being open to the possibility of where things are going in your relationships. So, it could be that, maybe you are trying to discern whether or not to stay or go in a primary relationship, or who's going to stay or go in your inner or outer circle or middle circle even. The thing is that you're being called to really be open to the possibilities of new people coming in. You're being called to be open to allowing the journey to unfold instead of trying to control the outcome. But the other thing that you're being asked to do is to extend an olive branch. And that olive branch could be towards the people that maybe have hurt you in the past. Maybe you're being asked to let go of some of the resentment that you're holding. And maybe this resentment is something that you're not even consciously aware of. But you're being asked to really sit in that stillness, sit in the quiet, and try to understand what's actually happening and how you are feeling about it. Because it feels like there is some element of this where maybe you've been ignoring how you deeply feel. And maybe there is a lot of anger, of repressed anger, or disappointment, or hurt, or frustration, or resentment that you have been holding in some of your close relationships that maybe you have been too afraid to look at. And so maybe it's time to extend the olive branch. And maybe some of that forgiveness actually is something that you need to offer to yourself. A lot of times we don't think about, how the role that we play in our relationships can sometimes end up hurting us as well. And it's not necessarily that we're doing it purposefully, but when we whittle away at our own self-trust, when we whittle away our own self-worth by allowing others to treat us in ways that are not reflective of our value, of our worth, or where we allow others to influence us to back down on our boundaries that we have set to keep ourselves safe, it can really hinder the depth of connection that we have to ourselves. It can chip away at our self-trust, right? We can unknowingly take that chisel from someone else's hand who has been trying to devalue, diminish, belittle, or hurt us, and start using it on ourselves. So be mindful of where maybe that might be playing out in some of your relationships. Give that chisel away, give it back, right? Or not even give it back, but destroy it, right? And forgive yourself for that if that is something that you have experienced. And forgive yourself for maybe where you didn't act in a way that you felt was really reflective of who you actually are, right? Where maybe you have been emotionally reactive in some way and you were becoming this person who felt very argumentative or who felt like you were always on the defensive. Forgive yourself for that, because that was your nervous system or your subconscious trying to protect you from something. So pay attention to the red flags, right? Pay attention to who actually is supportive, who is safe, and where do you need to offer an olive branch. Maybe you have been distanced from certain people in your life because someone else in your life drove a wedge between you and that other person. And maybe you need to forgive yourself for allowing that to happen. Or maybe you need to ask for forgiveness from the other person for how you showed up in that relationship. And that's okay. But that's where we're going to be wiping the slate clean for the month of January, where we're going to really be focusing on watering the seeds of the relationships that we want to cultivate. And where maybe we're going to be weeding out the things that are not healthy for us, that maybe are strangling out these new relationships that want to bud, that want to grow, that need your time and attention, that deserve your time and attention. And when we start to weed out the garden and remove the people from our lives that are not healthy for us, that are toxic, it allows the garden to grow in a way that feels sustainable, that feels fulfilling, that feels nourishing, that feels enriching. And so that's what you're being called to do this month in the month of January. The other big theme for January is gratitude as well. It's being grateful for the journey that you have been on up until this point. It is looking back on perhaps some of the more painful experiences that you have had or the trauma that you have experienced and being grateful for what those experiences taught you about yourself. It's learning how to transform that pain into power. It's being grateful for what you have created, right? Perhaps maybe you have this beautiful family that is reflective of the love that you shared with this partner. And even if that relationship is ending or changing or whatever it might be, it's just being grateful for what the two of you did create together. And maybe you can even look at your partner and say that you are grateful for them too, because you learned so much about yourself. You learned maybe so much about what it is that you do want and what you don't want, and that you are grateful for the experience that you had, that you created together, whether or not it was healthy. That's fine. But we can still have an appreciation for what we learned, right? We can still have an appreciation for what it opened up our eyes to, for the awarenesses that it created, for the unfolding of that relationship that led us to this point to become who we are today, and to maybe also understand who we are not. So being grateful for the family that you have together, and then how to move forward in a way that feels like the right next step for all of you. And of course, where you're not continuing to self-sacrifice or self-abandon what you want, what you need, and how you deserve to be treated. And remember to rely on your intuition when you are noticing red flags, right? Really tune into how your body is communicating to you as to whether or not you do feel safe in the relationship. Allow your body to tune into whether or not you feel like this person is supportive, that they are safe, that they do value you. If you're starting to get any kind of inclination that this relationship is not one that you want to continue because of how it leaves you feeling, how it leaves you feeling drained or depleted or undermined or diminished or undervalued in any kind of way, then lean into that. Trust that. Trust what your body and your intuition are trying to communicate. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Any of this resonated with you, I'd love to hear from you because it means so much to me to get your feedback. Until next week, everyone, be well. If you're hearing this message, that means you've listened all the way to the end. And for that, I am truly grateful. If you enjoyed this episode and found it valuable, would you mind leaving us a review wherever you listen to podcasts and sharing it with others? If you'd like to connect with me for one-on-one coaching or human design reading, you can find me on my website or on social media. Also, if you have a topic you'd like me to discuss on a future episode, please DM me. Be sure to tune in next week for another episode of Stepping into Meaningful Relationships.